what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 22 My Team Career Mode. This is episode number 100 today for the Brazilian Grand Prix in Season 6. And what a way to celebrate episode 100 with double the action, of course, with a sprint round around Sao Paulo. If you guys did miss the previous one at the Mexican Grand Prix, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one, because it's getting pretty desperate now in the season, I guess you could say, as things are heating up. It is very much crunch time, and the desperation did not pan out in the way he would have wanted it to for Fernando Alonso, losing points and ground in the championship. Verstappen now, for the first time, leads the Drivers' Championship by a couple of points over myself in second place. Sebastian Vettel has managed to close the gap after winning in a dominant fashion around the Mexican GP, which means going into the final 3 rounds, the top 4 of us, all former world champions, separated by 9 points, 11 world championships between us. So this is certainly turning into a blockbuster potential ending to Season 6, and we've got a great run in to the end of this championship. With Sao Paulo, we know the weather can throw up things. The race itself just seems to throw up left, right, and kind of, you know, spanners in the works with just the nature of this circuit and what can go around here. So many famous F1 moments, and then, of course, on the F1 game, we know Jeddah is always a thrilling one, and then Abu Dhabi with the new layout, I think, has actually improved so much as a finale destination on the F1 game especially. But first and foremost, we've got this round to go, and we've got Friday qualifying to get through. So it's just about getting through the sessions and hopefully through to the top 10 shootout. But early signs that there also might be some outside competition, with Lando Norris topping the sheets in Q1. But you've also got some quick people around. You know, remember, Williams historically in the last few seasons have been very good around this track. Just last season, wasn't it? I think Magnussen ended up getting a podium in that Williams, and we know the Williams is so much better now this season, so they might be a threat and might be in amongst it. So I don't think it'll just be a case of the top 4 in the championship fighting each other. I think we'll have others to contend with. Dragovic as well, you know, mathematically he's still in there, and he might want to try and get himself in the frame into the last 2 rounds. But right now, things are looking very good in terms of the pace. Q2, we topped this session ahead of Fernando Alonso. Liam Lawson, though, ahead of Verstappen, so maybe showing that the track is evolving. There's more time to find, and we are going to have to find some time maybe to feel comfortable around here as the clouds do come over the circuit. So maybe there is some last-ditch rain on the way, maybe in the last session in Q3, but for now it's all dry. We gained just about 1.7 to 8 tenths on the last corners to get up into P3 to book ourselves in. But the same can't be said for Verstappen. What did I say? The fact that Lawson in the Red Bull Ford was up there just ahead of Verstappen showed to me the track was evolving, and everyone had to get a second lap time in, and Verstappen just didn't improve enough. It's very fine margins, but he's knocked out, having taken the lead of the championship. The very next race, he's knocked out in qualifying in Q2, and will start the sprint round in P11. I mean, good news for him. Obviously, the sprint race is there, so he can try and jump up the order for the proper grid for Sunday's Grand Prix. But Vettel is through, Alonso as well. So the 3 of us determined to try and maximize the result to give us the best chance in the sprint race. And the clouds have fully come over. Overcast conditions now in Q3. Little mistake there with a bit of oversteer, a bit too eager on the throttle, and that might come back to bite me, because this is the only run we have on a fresh set of soft tyres. So we definitely lost at least, I would say, a tenth or so there with that slight oversteer moment. So let's see what this lap time is going to be as we come towards the start-finish line. It's going to be P1, which I was very chuffed with considering the mistake, but then immediately Russell goes quicker than us in the Mercedes car, and that's when I knew that for sure we're going to be starting a bit further down in the top 10, and sure enough, by the end of it, we're going to start in P7 for Saturday's sprint race. The fact that Mercedes went quicker than us just showed me that others had way more pace in their pocket. And in the end of it, even without the mistake, maybe we would have only been on the second or third row there. Lando Norris on pole position in the Audi. Dragovic in second place. Alonso, though, flying high in P3. That's a very good position for him to be in for the sprint race. And, of course, following pretty much what was a disaster weekend for him at the Mexican Grand Prix, he's going to want to bounce back in some style, so he's done well to put a front foot forward on the Friday. But now we get into Saturday, it's time for the sprint race. And for us, you know, with Verstappen knocked down Q2, P11, us only in P7, I know with a mistake in there on our lap, maybe that's a little bit worrying about maybe a little lack of pace in the Ferrari around Sao Paulo compared to flying pretty damn high at Mexico. So we might have our work cut out. Hopefully we can get Russell pretty easily in the first couple of laps, but then we've got some very stiff competition with Vettel. Magnussen in the Williams goes very well around here, and then I'm sure Alonso in P3 is going to try his hardest not to only solidify that position, but they go one further to make amends for Mexico. Drugovich and Norris, they have nothing to lose really from P1 and 2, so they're going to be even more of a threat in a way. This race sets the grid for tomorrow's one where all the big points are on offer, but we can still do some work here, and every point is maybe going to matter as we go into these final 3 rounds, especially with the top 4 all being former world champions. You know the level of driving is going to be at a peak as we go to 5 red lights for this Saturday sprint in Sao Paulo. Lights out and we're underway. It's a good start for us, but an even better one for Russell, who is able to stay ahead, but we're going to try and slice down on the inside at turn 1. Got very close to his gearbox, but managed to find a way through immediately up into P6. Vettel unable to get Kevin Magnussen, and Drugovich has managed to pull away from the front row. He's got Lando Norris, and the pole man is actually down to P3. Alonso up in P2. That's a cracking start for him. Exactly what he needed, but Drugovich has broken away already 1 second ahead after 1 sector. Very much looking like what Vettel did in Mexico pretty much. So Drugovich wasting no time at all, setting purple lap times, and oh no, our teammate Verstappen, he's in the pits in a sprint race. That is exactly the opposite of what you want. Starting down in P11 in the business end of the grid, and unfortunately it is brought up an incident for him. He's broken his front wing on the opening lap, and so that is a disaster for the man who led the championship going into this race weekend, as we're now hustling and harrying Sebastian Vettel. We get a bit too eager though into turn 1, trying to outbrake him, and go so wide they'll almost go off circuit, so having to re-engage and refocus and remain in P6, and we're going to go again for this move. But Vettel is seeming very stern in his defense, holding that inside line, not letting me get down the inside. So second time lucky now on the outside, but now Vettel's the one that outbreaks me. Almost hits the back of Magnussen in the way, but Vettel, as we saw really, you know, many times before already in this season, proving a very difficult candidate to overtake. He did so well in Canada, remember, to defend against us, and he's doing the same now as he holds us up. He's really making things awkward for us, but he's now lost a bit of momentum down the crest as we now climb the hill back up into sector 2, round the outside with a bit of battery use, and we're up into P5, and we're going to desperately try and cling on to the train of Alonso, Norris and Magnussen as Drugovich just keeps on pumping in the purple lap times to pull away. And now Alonso under pressure from Norris, bit of contact between the Spaniard and the Brit, and that slowed them all up, and now we're back in the fight with this train. Vettel not too far behind, but can we make a move on Magnussen? Norris goes for a second bite at Alonso in the P2. Magnussen gets in there as well. We're boxed in. We can't really go anywhere. I'm just trying to play the patient game, wait for that opening to go through on Magnussen. There we go, on the inside, and we'll just play the patient game now with Norris, because, you know, we don't want to get too hasty. We've still got 6 laps to go, so that's enough time to maybe get a move done on the Audi, and maybe even Alonso, to be fair, because he doesn't look that quick now. Having made such a great start to get the Audi, his race pace doesn't seem very great on the medium tyre, and he is pretty much holding us all up now. I mean, the gap that Drugovich has got in such a short span of time is pretty ridiculous, as now myself and Norris DRS Open just closing down Alonso, and Alonso goes wide. It's another mistake from Fernando, as we saw in Mexico. He was locking up a few times there. Are there some late season brake issues, or is that really just the pressure of it all getting to Fernando, having carried this Aston all season with the consistency? That consistency is finally breaking, and we're up into P3, but we're going to try and make it P2 now on lap 10 of 12 of this sprint as we get through on Norris through the center S. But on the exit, the Audi is right up our gearbox, and so is Sebastian Vettel on the right hand side. They both have DRS on me. We're going to be in the middle, pinched in. We almost made contact with the Audi, and through goes Sebastian Vettel up into second place. He's made the double overtake to make it a 1-2 for AAR, and I'm trying desperately to keep up with him now, but he's actually opened up the tap, and on the second last lap, we make a pretty poor error on the final corner there up the hill. Lando now has a little look on the inside, nipping at the heels. We have DRS, thankfully, to help us out, but the Audi's looking pretty damn punchy, having to use battery a lot of that straight just to stay ahead, and that's going to leave Vettel enough breathing room to finish in P2. A fantastic recovery for him. I mean, for us, to be fair as well, to be P3 is a very good job, but just what could have been, unfortunately, Vettel just got away from us for a bit. But out of nowhere, AAR 1-2. Drugovich with a commanding, nay, dominating sprint race there, but Vettel, to be fair, has to take a bow for that double pass on myself and Lando. It all got quite tight in that left-hander at the end of Sector 1. Vettel played that to an absolute T to get round the outside, and what could have been for us, but really unfortunate race for Verstappen, who now is going to start tomorrow's Grand Prix way down the order, and that's going to have to be a recovery drive and a half if he's to keep in there. But following that sprint, we now take the lead of the championship. Verstappen down to second place, Alonso third, Vettel closes up to 5 points. Drugovich, though, with the sprint race win, is now only 10 points off the lead of the championship. So, all of a sudden, 12 laps later, from Mexico to now, it's now maybe a 5-way contention going into the full Grand Prix here in Sao Paulo.
Formula One returns to Interlagos once again, with the stage set for what promises to be another classic Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Sebastian Vettel famously clinched his third championship here in 2012, and just 4 years later, Max Verstappen treated us to one of the finest wet weather drives of all time. We're racing today then at Interlagos, a historic 2.7-mile circuit and one of the few anti-clockwise tracks on the calendar. 15 corners in total, 9 to the left and 6 to the right, with a technical middle section opening up to a flat-out Sector 3. That gives us our best passing opportunity down into Turn 1. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Felipe Drugovich lines up on pole position, and starting alongside in P2 is Sebastian Vettel. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have the owner driver, Norris, Fernando Alonso and Magnussen, Sainz, Russell, Bottas and Liam Lawson, Schwartzman, Hülkenberg, Alex Albon and Gasly, Oscar Piastri, Leclerc, Esteban Ocon and Daniel Ricciardo, Mick Schumacher, Perez, Verstappen, they'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty, and Yuki Tsunoda. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway. It's race day yet again, and joining me for a chat is Anthony Davidson. And our racers are certainly in for a rough day today. What will you be watching out for as they head into Turn 1?
Well, the start of the race is always one of the most nerve-wracking parts. You have to hope that everyone is able to get off to a clean start, and this is possibly the trickiest part of the entire race. So many drivers in such a small space, and finding your braking point into Turn 1 as well. It's a testament to the driver's skill that there aren't more incidents.
So it looks like the rain is going to stay away from this Grand Prix weekend. Overcast conditions, but not a drop in sight, which I think is probably going to be a good thing for ourselves and potentially others as well in terms of the pace they showed in the sprint race. For sure, these two AAR Archer racing cars are looking pretty darn fast around Sao Paulo, and almost like we always did at the right time at the end of the seasons when we were in our own team. They've hotted up at the right time. They've shown the pace at the right time where it really matters, where Drugovich now is back in the frame within 10 points of the championship lead. Vettel, what a resurgence for him with 3 wins now in the season. A great sprint race that was on the Saturday, so they're going to be some stiff competition. But, you know, Fernando Alonso, I thought he was going to make amends for Mexico, but ended up making more mistakes there on the sprint, so he has another chance to make up for it in P5. And then Max Verstappen, well, my oh my, what a big mistake for him that turned out to be on the Friday being knocked out, because that eventually obviously led to that damage he got in the sprint, and he's right at the back of the grid for the beginning of this Grand Prix, so it's going to be a mountain to climb for our teammate, and that could cost us in the constructors as well, you know, with both these AAR cars on the front row. We're starting on the soft compounder tyre, the pole sitter is not, so this is a good chance to try and get the jump in the early track position at the start of the race. Fire lights are out, and we're underway for the full Grand Prix, and not only are we looking to take advantage with the softs, Sebastian Vettel has immediately taken the advantage of the softs. What an insane start for the 6-time world champion, who just shoots up down the inside into the lead and already builds about a second gap in a sector alone to his own teammate on the medium tyres. We're defending against the Mercedes because Lando Norris, despite being on the mediums himself as well, has actually managed to get us into turn 1. Not the best start for us through the Senna S. And now we've got to try and re-overtake him. And ideally, to be honest, we need to clear the Audi and Drugovich ASAP, because we are on the softs like Vettel. So we need to be up there, you know, kind of on the same pace as him. And we are going to show the soft tyre is obviously going to be quicker at this stage of the race. Without the tyre, we're really kicking in right now as we easily slide down the inside of the Audi to get back into P3, at least where we started the race on the grid. But now we have to press on and overtake Drugovich in quick succession, and we'll hopefully do that as we are gaining on the end of lap 4 onto 5 with DRS, a bit of battery use. Drugovich does not defend the inside in the same manner his teammate did so aggressively yesterday in the Saturday sprint. Almost pretty much leaves the door open, does have a little pinch at the exit, the Senna S, but really just doesn't put up much of a fight. Maybe he understands that's not his fight right now, because really myself and Vettel will be trying to pull away to kind of make use of the soft compound, knowing that eventually those mediums will be the better race tyre come around lap 10. But fighting going on between Fernando Alonso now and Russell. Alonso desperately trying to get round the outside of the Mercedes car, both of them on the softs themselves, so both of them will want to try and clear the Audi and then also catch Drugovich as well, because they too need to use the softs. The only way this strategy works, starting on softs, is if you actually use the compound well enough to bridge that gap, pull a gap out to kind of negate the tyre wear later on and get that track position. But right now, Alonso finds himself struggling to actually finish off the move on Russell, because Russell gets back down the inside. They're still going at it through the exit, the Senna S, and now Magnussen and a load of other cars might be sniffing around. Alonso pulls through on the outside, but there goes Magnussen to make it 3 wide. The Williams gets in the middle of it and is going to annoy Fernando Alonso, who now gets pushed down to P7. This is not going the way he wanted it to for the Spaniard. What is going on with Alonso? Even Hulkenberg now is closing up, and now he's going side by side with the Golf Porsche Williams car, and Hulkenberg pulls alongside. It's 3 wide into turn 1, and it's the wrong Aston Martin that is going to get through on the outside. Hulkenberg now up into P7 ahead of his teammate, who is in the championship fight. So it's just not going the way of Alonso in the last 2 episodes, has it? Meanwhile, Vettel out in the lead. We've pulled him in under a second, but he now comes in, and we are absolutely going to cover him off on lap 11. I did feel like we had a bit more tyre to go on longer, but I don't want to risk it. I just want to cover off Vettel, because clearly, at least at the front, you know, ahead of Drugovich and Norris, the 2 medium tyre runners, it looks to be a fight between myself and Vettel, and this was the right call, because what a pit stop from the Ferrari crew. For once, I'm going to actually praise them, because they've got us ahead of Vettel in the pit stops. Great stuff for them. Big error and almost disaster class for us on the exit of the pit lane as we, well, the tyres are basically ice cold, so we almost deck it into the wall, but thankfully keep our wits about us and keep the car going in a straight line. But we've done half the work here by just getting ahead of Vettel, and that's all down to my pit crew. Thank you very much. But now we've got to try and make the most of these fresh mediums, which may be a challenge if Vettel comes knocking. And we're going side by side, because we've seen how quick he has been all weekend, and that car is powering past us, even with us using so much battery down the straight. Vettel able to find that pace, and we are just not getting it together. Few slight errors here and there. Thankfully, Vettel's made his own little error actually into turn 1 because he was a bit further back, but even that is not going to help us. Just moments like that may allow Drugovich and Norris to bridge the gap a little bit by the time they make their first pit stop of the afternoon. Vettel again comes knocking, this time on the outside, and it's going to give him that advantage on the inside. We have to leave him some room there. We stay ahead in P8, but all this time we're just losing tiny amounts of time to our potential rivals once they make their pit stops. Vettel again with the dive. We defend, but already we've probably lost about a second or so, and we're only like a second ahead of Drugovich when we came into the pit, so I'm worried that they may come out just where we are, basically, or even ahead of us. So we need to try and clear these cars and try and stop fighting with Vettel so much, but it's so difficult because he's just constantly on the back of us, pressurizing us, and as we are still struggling to really find a groove on these mediums, we somehow drift through the center S to overtake Schwartzman, but Vettel just follows us through and is just hanging on the back of us, so he is determined to try and get this position back that he lost in the pit lane as we now close up to Leclerc. But yeah, ahead of them, Albon, Sainz, Magnussen, Norris, Drugovich, all on mediums, all yet to stop. But we're getting to that point in the race because as we catch up to Leclerc, he peels into the pits, and this is going to be the time to see how we've done with the pace on these new mediums versus them on that first set. But we continue to still scrap with Vettel, and there's Drugovich on the mini-map coming through the pit lane exit. This is going to be close, but the safety car is deployed, and that just about means that Drugovich will come out and hold position ahead of myself and Vettel. If it wasn't for that safety car, I reckon we maybe would have got ahead of Drugovich just by the end of that straight, you know, but it's because of this mistake from Russell, a little spin in the final corners and get it stuck on the grass, I think, or waiting up for traffic, but either way, I think that then actually makes him stuck, ironically, on the hill. I think he mounts the curb and just doesn't really get going, so that slow car in a precarious position brings out the full course yellow. So the race order is Drugovich on hard tyres, so at least that's one thing. Myself and Vettel will have that slight advantage on the compound, but eventually our softs obviously will wear out a little bit. But it's Drugovich from myself, Vettel, Norris, Magnussen in P5. Alonso, well, on the mini-map, looks like he's at least down in like P7, I would say, so he's got some work cut out in this second stint. But here we go then, going to green, safety car is in, and almost immediately we're going to go for the race lead on the inside of Drugovich. He does well to keep it round the outside, the inside for the exit. We go a bit wide to give him some room. Drugovich turns into us, we're spun round and tagged, and absolute chaos ensues here in Sao Paulo. Look how much carbon fibre is flown about, and with all of that chaos, somehow the FIA have thought, no, that doesn't warrant a safety car. Russell's solo spin does, but that somehow did not warrant a safety car, and it means I've survived that somehow, but it means that I've come out in P10 and I have no safety car to pit under to change my front wings, so we may just have to firm staying out with this level of damage, and it's all from this little pinch which, Drugovich hardly felt in the inside of his cockpit as he turned in, and this is the viewpoint from Sebastian Vettel. So, you know, Drugovich did very well to keep around the outside on hard tyres that would, you know, take time to warm up, obviously. We do well to get the jump on him. We're a bit wide, but Drugovich then just, well, simply turns into us. There was no need to make that correction left, spins us round. Lando Norris unfortunately tags us along with the Red Bull Ford, and a load of other cars get caught up in it, including our teammate Max Verstappen, unfortunately, the other Audi of Carlos Sainz, Golf Porsche Williams. So many cars with damage, so much carbon fibre, but yeah, no safety car. Schwartzman is in for damage. We're going to continue on because we've got, 14 laps left this Grand Prix. Lawson's now off. What is going on in this race? Everyone's dropping like flies. Lawson's off, so we get one more free position, but because we've only got 14 laps left, and I desperately need to try and get as many points as we can, we're going to have to firm, just continuing on with a slightly yellow front wing. We can't do anything anyway about the side pod and floor damage, but the front wing's the only thing we could have changed, but we're going to have to just firm that and carry on and hope that the other guys ahead of us fighting may hold each other up and we can try and, you know, salvage something from this race, because right now, Alonso's now probably in the top 5, I think. Vettel and Drugovich are 1 and 2 right now, so this could be a huge moment for the championship in terms of swinging in their directions, and unfortunately, now that I really think about it, this is turned into classic Ferrari disaster class at the high pressure moment. Verstappen's way down. I think he's even lapped at this point, and now here we are in a lowly top 10 position with a lot of damage on the car. And through all of that chaos, Fernando Alonso may have just got the luck he needed. Look at this replay. Look at the way he cuts through all these incidents happening. He avoids contact left, right and centre. The Audi coming across, the Williams, his own teammate, who got caught up in a way that he didn't. And Alonso finds himself in P3. Not even, let alone the top 5. P3 podium position right now for this Spaniard. As we move now back to the live action at 24. Verstappen spun it. What is going on? I think he's got maybe sustained damage. That's not making his car very great to drive there. And that spin, though, has actually helped us, because that spin brought out a yellow flag that's held all these guys up. Alonso slowed right down to avoid any sort of contact with Verstappen, who's a lap down spinning, and that inadvertently has actually helped us out. So our teammate, who's down and out for the count, has spun to help us out in a very poetic way, I guess you could say. So now we're on the back of Schumacher, and we may not be as supreme in the corners, but we've definitely still got the straight line pace with plenty of battery usage and DRS to try and make an overtake work. Just we need to brake a little bit earlier in the corners to slow the thing down, or to be fair, maybe the understeer might help us a little bit to defend Schumacher as we get up into P7. And just like we were in Monza, very much driving with a bit of red mist in the cockpit, determined to try and salvage as many positions and points as we can. I don't think we'll be overtaking the Aston Martins, but based off the season, we should be able to get past Leclerc and Gasly in a much slower Mercedes and McLaren. These two drivers and teams have just not had the momentum this season, have not really looked up to the mustard. And Leclerc, well, he's had his fair share of pretty poor races this season, and so we are able to actually overtake him round the outside in the Senna S and then get on the back of Pierre Gasly, lap 28, showing okay pace, to be fair. So, you know, without a safety car, this was the right decision to not pit, because if we did pit, we probably would have been around, well, P15, many seconds off even 1 point paying position, at least at this stage right now. Medium tyres giving us good grip. We're able to go around the outside of Gasly, and even if the tyres do fall off and we do struggle now to maintain the pace with the Astons, at least we can hold station and just defend for P6 as there's a big crash. On lap 29, Bottas spins out of this Brazilian Grand Prix, and that's going to bring a second late safety car out to end this race off. Onto lap 31, Sebastian Vettel's actually gone and overtaken Drugovich for the lead. So Seb is leading this race. Drugovich P2, Alonso still in that P3 podium position, Hulkenberg, myself, and now we're all going to bunch up. So is there a half chance to get maybe even a P4 here? That would be quite something. If we can try and limit the damage to a P4 just behind Alonso, I would very much take that. So as we get ready to go racing once again, we've got, how many, 4 laps left in this race. Could we maybe salvage P4? Verstappen gets out of the way with the blue flags. Hulkenberg with a lockup, but then he pinches us into turn 1, and we're pushed down 2-3 positions. Leclerc now starts to turn into us. Today, the AI have been on a mad one. They've been so aggressive. Hulkenberg even locked up. Like, how is he turning into us and pinching us into the apex, having gone wide himself in the same corner? I just don't understand it. But we managed to re-overtake him, but now we've got to try and catch back up to Gasly just to get that P5 back. we're going to have to forget about a P4 from Hulkenberg at this stage, as on lap 34, oh, tyre on the grass, Vettel's made an error, he's dipped his tyre into the grass, going way too wide in the brake zone, and Felipe Drugovich now all of a sudden leads this Grand Prix, and Alonso maybe has a chance to get P2 even in this race, because Vettel's now under pressure. He's made a mistake, dipped that tyre into the grass, and for sure that's going to carry over a little bit into the next couple of corners, and so now Alonso, because of that fact, is down the inside and may just get a shock P2 here, and we send it to the inside of Gasly as these guys get caught up in a train, and we're right up behind Hulkenberg, so maybe there is actually still time to get P4, but Vettel fends off Alonso to maintain the 1-2 for AAR, and onto the last lap of the Grand Prix. I am trying my hardest to maybe get Hulkenberg, but it's difficult. I can't really dance the car around the outside of it all because we don't really have the out-and-out grip or downforce anymore with all the damage we've got. The only chance we've got is maybe in a straight line up the hill onto the start-finish straight for the checkered flag. It's going to be Felipe Drugovich. He took the win in the sprint. He takes the full Grand Prix win at Sao Paulo. It's going to be a 1-2 for aarava Racing at a crucial time this season. Alonso on the podium, and we can't get anywhere near close to Hulkenberg, unfortunately, so we have to settle for P5. All things considered, still pretty happy with that, considering we're facing backwards. We got clouted by the Audi and the Red Bull, but what a chaotic Grand Prix.
We've witnessed some great battles around the historic curves of Interlagos today, and they've taken a fantastic win. So, Anthony, what made the difference out there today?
Taking care of the car was absolutely vital today. It's been obvious all weekend that the pace was there, but look at the attrition rate we've had. They would have been very concerned about any minor anomaly towards the latter stages of this Grand Prix.
And here we are, a team that is no stranger to the podium, taking their place on top once again. A sublime race today, and a stunning win for Ferrari.
So Felipe Drugovich was absolutely determined, it would seem, this weekend. Little helping hand of a few mistakes here and there from drivers, you know, even his teammate there having a mistake. And we saw a few of those, actually, because Lawson, remember, went so wide at turn 1. Hulkenberg with the lock-up. There were quite a few mistakes, actually, at turn 1 by the AI. Very much like what we saw at Austria a few episodes ago when they kept spinning in Sector 1. So the AI mistakes were out in full force today. But the man who's won the Grand Prix, it's a little bit frustrating because I do feel like he did turn into us and created that incident, but it is what it is. Verstappen with a howler of a weekend, 0 points on the board for him, and Drugovich, because he got the win today, 25 points, got the win yesterday, that is going to be a massive swing in the championship, and it means he goes from P5 to leading the Drivers' Championship going into Jeddah the last 2 rounds. It's now a 1-2 for the AAR cars in the Drivers' Championship. Vettel 2 points off, myself and Alonso tied on points, 4 points off Drugovich, and now Verstappen is the one with it all to do, with an outside chance with 2 rounds to go, 18 points back. What a turnaround spin for the Brazilian. And actually, I didn't even realise that. Yeah, he's turned out for his home race. The Brazilian has won both the races here in Sao Paulo, so the home crowd will be loving that, but it is not a great day in the office for Verstappen. Not for me exactly as well, to be fair, considering where we started the Grand Prix, how it was going. You know, looked like we were going to be fighting for the win and instead limping home for P5. But as a team, this is classic Ferrari-itis, I think, because when it really matters, we've lost ground. You know, we've been leading the constructors this entire time, all season, and in the last 3 rounds now, all of a sudden, we're the ones 20 points back from aarava Racing, my own team. So very much getting the taste of my own medicine of how it feels to be on the receiving end of the AAR magic at the end of the season. We've got our work cut out to bring a trophy to Maranello for sure in the last 2 rounds to Jeddah, but that has been some Brazilian Grand Prix episode for episode 100 of this series. Guys, if you have enjoyed it, be sure to hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.